Welcome to another edition of How To, where this week I'm going to give you a quick overview of how to apply to business school at Stanford. So if you're interested in applying for business school at Stanford, what you need to know is that there are 3 rounds of applications, okay? Round 1, round 2, and round 3. They say that rounds 1 and 2 are less competitive than round 3 because they're earlier in the year. And although some people say that round 1 is the most competitive, actually based on all the research that I did last year, round 1 and round 2 they say are about roughly equal in this round. One thing you do want to check about the rounds is you want to be sure that if there's any scholarships that you're applying for, that you look at their requirements so that you apply by the time that the scholarships are due. So some of them will require you to apply round 1 or round 2. The second choice that you should face is, do you want to do the MSX program? That's the program I'm doing. It's a 1-year Master's of Science in Management for people with at least 8 years of work experience. Or you can do the traditional MBA program, which is a 2-year program. It takes a little bit more time, there's more core requirements, and you have a lot more time kind of in the basics before you get to take electives. And that's a great program too. And that one, you don't have to have work experience, I think, at all. And so the average age of that program is a little bit younger, some people who are kind of fresher to the working world. So once you decide that you want to apply and you find the round, then you should go on the website and download the application information in terms of what you need to write in terms of essays, okay? This past year, there were 2 essays that we had to write. The first essay was about what is most important to you and why, and the second essay was about why Stanford. So one of the things you should know about the essays is that although the questions seem really simple, I think they're actually designed to be very transformative. The mission statement of the Graduate School of Business at Stanford is change lives, change organizations, and change the world. So the questions are designed, I think, to be their own transformative experience for you. So my best advice is to start talking about those things. Honestly, start journaling. They say if you journal for a couple minutes a day over the course of 2 weeks, in 6 months, your clarity will be so much greater. And that's even without considering a specific topic. So I'd say start early on those questions and really start noodling. And in particular on the second question, really get into like what you would do. Like what's it like if you actually get into Stanford? Like what are you going to do here? A lot of people gave me advice to look for specific professors you'd want to take classes from. And you can actually get pretty much the whole Stanford course catalog online. You can research who's in the business school. So do some research and see interesting people or professors that you think have interesting work that you might like to learn more from or do work with, and you can kind of flesh that out and use it to outline your essays. So that's the essays piece. The third piece is your recommendations. You need to get recommenders. If you choose to apply for both of those programs, the MSX and MBA, you can do them on the same application. And in that case, I believe you have 2 recommenders for the MBA program and then a 3rd recommender for the MSX program who can speak a little bit more to your managerial or leadership experience, perhaps and add a different dimension. And only the MSX program will review that 3rd reviewer recommendation. So that's kind of the structure there. And then the 4th thing is you need to take the GMAT. You can also take the GRE, which I did not really realize going in. If you think there's any chance you might want to apply for another grad school later that only takes the GRE and not the GMAT, you may want to take the GRE. If you're less quantitative, you also might want to take the GRE. The GMAT gets pretty tough on the quantitative, I'm going to be real, so you want to factor that in. Now, I think the average GMAT scores for the Graduate School of Business here are like 737 on the GMAT out of 800 total. That's really high for MSX program because people are like actually in a job, not just taking standardized tests all the time. I believe the average is 710. Still, that's pretty high. At least the GMAT, well, I guess I don't know about the GRE, but the GMAT has 2 different sections, and then they've got like a writing section too, but the main sections are verbal and quantitative. And so you want to just know like you're going to be tested on both of those areas, and the quant is pretty hard. So a tip about the GMAT is I took the Manhattan prep class, and that was really useful. I kind of grew up thinking that preparing for a standardized test was cheating, but all the advice that I got about business school was that actually preparing for standardized tests is being responsible and showing that you're willing to prepare for things, which of course I am. So yeah, I came to a couple admissions events, one for women and one for diversity here at Stanford, and that was where I got some really good advice from other applicants. It's just like, don't worry too much, just take the prep class, you'll gain a lot from it. Surprisingly, my verbal score was way better. I basically aced the verbal, but my verbal score improved from my practice tests through that course. My quantitative score, although I think I got more confident, probably I improved a little bit. It really did not move that much. So you should just know that it's not just taking the course itself. You actually have to like put in the time to practice outside the courses. The sessions will help you, and I did mine online. That was great, but you do need to schedule in a lot of time to practice and prepare, especially on the sections that you're less familiar with. So that's just something to keep in mind as you think about your application timing. Last note I want to make on the GMAT. To take the GMAT, you go to a test prep center near you, and there are some restrictions about how soon you can take it in terms of you can't take it twice in 2 days, for example. I think you have to wait a couple weeks or something. So, but you can take it multiple times, and Stanford will only evaluate the highest score that you get. And you can kind of choose, I think, which one that is. So you can take it multiple times. You just want to be sure that you're not pressing right up against the deadline and expecting to take it multiple times, because if you are, you're going to find out actually there's restrictions. You need to be able to wait between the times that you take the GMAT in terms of their restrictions and their requirements, and I think it's about $250. Last thing, I think I might have already said last thing, but one more thing on the GMAT that I just remembered is that when you take the GMAT, you can actually see your score the second you take it. And you can actually choose to cancel your score before they ever report it. Like once you see it, if you just come up with like a bare minimum score that you just do not want to have on your record, I basically booked a GMAT time to force myself to study. I failed to study adequately for that time, so I ended up just like not going to that particular session because I didn't want to get a negative score. But what I realized afterward is I really should have gone to that session and just learned about what it's like to go to the test center and find the weird room and all of these things, because actually you can waive your score, okay? So you just want to write down, like if it's 600 or whatever, the bare minimum score that below which you just would not want to have it on your record, just write down that score. If the financing or the money for the tests like is not a make or break deal for you, just go in, take the test, write down your minimum score, minimum embarrassing score, or whatever, and then at the end, if you don't like your score, just erase it, and then you'll have at least gained a little bit of experience in doing the GMAT test. There may be some other odds and ends, like when you fill out your overall application online, it asks you a lot about your work history. So you not only have to put in your resume, but you also need to like detail each one of your roles. And I think you have to answer a couple more questions about them, such as why did you leave? This may seem like a clerical exercise, but it's actually really nice to reflect on why you did leave, and you kind of end up seeing some more pieces of your own story through that reflection process that can be really valuable to having your application overall be coherent. Again, really the last thing I'll leave you with this time is that overall on your application, like what I learned from all of the great people who gave me advice was you're not looking to be perfect or fit the mold or be a certain way. Really what you're trying to do is be as authentic as you possibly can. It is incredibly vulnerable to write essays like that, and if you Google around on Medium for successful essays, you'll find some interesting articles that show you kind of what they're like. People dig really deep. And from being here, one of the things that I've heard from the staff here about how they select their classes and what they're selecting for is they want to find people who they believe will be able to move the needle in a really significant way. So if you think about that piece, rather than saying, I've done so many things, you really kind of want to get deep into what you really care about and like what matters to you. Because what they're really reading for is like something in you or your application that's like conviction, I think, or that's how what my best understanding is in terms of what you're going to be committed to doing going forward, and therefore how this experience can amplify what you're able to accomplish and what we're all kind of collectively able to accomplish as humans on this planet. So I hope this video has been helpful for you, at least to get started. If you have more questions, a really great resource is coming to admissions days. I met with, or just chatted with, and then met with like so many great people from the admissions team here, and you can ask them really candid questions. You can also send emails, but I thought that really like being here for the admissions sessions, and particularly the women's and diversity days, were really special opportunities to get some very honest feedback and really good questions answered. And I have, lots more tips and stuff like that. So if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments and we can go from there. Thanks so much and good luck with your application.